For most part of the 20th century, if you wanted to picture an American military working dog, you pictured a German Shepherd, the breed that stood beside soldiers in Korea, Vietnam, and the early years of the War on Terror. It was the breed that built the entire foundation of the modern United States military K-9 program. Today, that picture is almost completely out of date, and the breed quietly taking over some of the most demanding special operations roles in the American military is one that most people have never even heard of, the Dutch Shepherd. We are going to walk through exactly why that shift happened, what went wrong with the German Shepherd that the US military spent decades relying on, and why the dog replacing it in some of the most elite units in the world came from, of all places, the farmland of the Netherlands. Before we get into it, drop a comment right now. Had you ever heard of the Dutch Shepherd before this video? Or did you think German Shepherds were still the top dog in US special operations? Let's see who knew. The breed that built the program. To understand why the German Shepherd's dominance is faded, you first have to understand just how dominant it actually was. For most of the modern history of the United States military working dog program, the German Shepherd was the default breed. It was intelligent, physically powerful, versatile enough to handle both detection and patrol work, and present in essentially every major American conflict from the Second World War through the early years of operations in Iraq and Afghanistan. German Shepherds were not chosen by accident. They earned that role through genuine performance, and for decades, nobody seriously questioned whether another breed could do the job better. But breeds are not static. The German Shepherd that served in Vietnam and the German Shepherd available to military buyers today are, in important respects, different animals, not because the breed standard changed dramatically, but because the global breeding population that the military draws from has shifted in ways that matter enormously for working performance. And at the same time that shift was happening, two other breeds, the Belgian Malinois and the Dutch Shepherd, were being developed and refined by European working dog communities specifically for the kind of high-drive and high-endurance work that special operations units increasingly demanded. The military did not abandon the German Shepherd because it stopped working. It moved toward other breeds because those breeds, for very specific and well-documented reasons, started working better. This is also worth understanding in the context of where the United States military actually sources its working dogs from. Roughly 85% of dogs currently serving in the American military were not born domestically. They come primarily from breeding programs in Belgium, the Netherlands, Germany, and the Czech Republic, countries with decades of experience producing working-line dogs specifically for police, military, and competitive protection sport use. Because the U.S. military is buying directly from these European working populations rather than relying entirely on its own domestic breeding, it has direct, real-time visibility into which breeds and which bloodlines are actually performing at the highest level in the working dog community at any given moment. That purchasing relationship means shifts in European working line preferences translate relatively quickly into shifts in what the American military procures, and over the last 2 decades, those European working line communities have increasingly gravitated toward Malinois and Dutch Shepherds for exactly the structural and temperament reasons we are about to walk through. The first reason behind that shift is one that the dog breeding world has been quietly worried about for decades. And it has nothing to do with intelligence or loyalty. It has to do with what happens to a breed's body when too much of the breeding population descends from too few popular sires, all selected for how a dog looks rather than how a dog performs. Reason 1. The hip problem that show breeding created. Here is the uncomfortable truth that sits behind a lot of the German Shepherd's decline in working roles. A significant portion of the global German Shepherd breeding population has been shaped by conformation showing rather than working performance. Show line breeding standards in many countries favor a steeply sloped top line, the dramatic downward angle from shoulders to hindquarters that has become associated with a certain show ring silhouette. That sloped structure, however visually striking, places mechanical stress on the hip joints in a way that veterinary researchers have directly linked to increased rates of hip dysplasia, a condition where the hip socket does not form correctly and which, in its more severe forms, leads to lameness and crippling arthritis. Veterinarians and canine health researchers have been vocal critics of this style of breeding for exactly this reason, warning that prioritizing a dramatic outline over structural soundness compromises the long-term health and working capability of the animals produced. Compounding the hip dysplasia issue is something population geneticists call the popular sire effect, a pattern where a small number of highly sought-after stud dogs father a disproportionately large share of puppies across an entire breed population. When one or two dogs are responsible for thousands of offspring, any genetic weakness those dogs carry, including a predisposition to hip or joint problems, gets distributed across the breed at a much faster rate than natural variation would normally allow. Kennel clubs in multiple countries, including Germany's own breed registry, have implemented breeding limits specifically to counteract this effect, recognizing that an oversaturated gene pool from a handful of popular sires creates exactly the kind of structural health problems that make a dog unreliable for sustained physical work. For a military program that needs a dog capable of running, jumping, and working at full intensity for years without breaking down, a breed population carrying elevated rates of hip dysplasia is a serious operational liability. It is not a cosmetic concern, but a readiness concern. Reason 2. The Dutch Shepherd's cleaner genetic profile. The Dutch Shepherd, by comparison, presents a noticeably different health picture, and the numbers back that up directly. According to data published by the Orthopedic Foundation for Animals, which tracks hip and joint health statistics across dog breeds in the United States, Dutch Shepherds evaluated between 1974 and early 2023 showed a hip dysplasia rate of approximately 9% and an elbow dysplasia rate of around 5.5%. While direct breed-to-breed comparisons always carry some nuance, those figures sit considerably better than the historical rates reported in portions of the German Shepherd population, particularly the showline segments most affected by the sloped top-line breeding trend. The Dutch Breed Club has also been notably proactive about transparency, establishing a dedicated hotline back in 2008 specifically so breeders and owners could report health and behavioral problems as they emerged, allowing the Breed Club to track and respond to issues in something close to real time. Part of the reason the Dutch Shepherd has avoided some of the structural problems affecting other Shepherd breeds traces back to its own complicated history. Dutch Shepherds were originally developed as all-purpose farm dogs in the rural Netherlands. They were responsible for herding livestock, pulling carts, guarding gardens, and serving as general-purpose watchdogs. The breed's population nearly collapsed during the Second World War, when many dogs starved and breeding all but stopped, forcing post-war breeders to rebuild the line using a wider genetic base than a closed, show-focused breeding program would have allowed. That history, while difficult for the breed at the time, left the modern Dutch Shepherd population somewhat insulated from the kind of narrow, popular sire-driven genetic bottleneck that affected German Shepherds bred primarily for the show ring, a breed that was rebuilt from a wider base, with working ability as the primary selection criterion rather than appearance, ended up structurally sounder almost by accident of history. Health and genetics are only half the story, though, because even with a perfectly healthy German Shepherd, special operations units started gravitating toward a completely different set of working traits. Traits that the Dutch Shepherd and its cousin, the Belgian Malinois, simply carry more reliably. And one of those traits is something most civilian dog owners have never even heard described as a measurable quality. Reason 3: drive, endurance, and the working line advantage. Beyond the health and genetics conversation, there is a simpler operational reality driving special operations units toward Dutch Shepherds and Belgian Malinois: working drive. Multiple experienced handlers and trainers within the canine community have noted that Malinois and Dutch Shepherds tend to display higher drive and longer functional working lives than German Shepherds. While German Shepherds are often described by trainers as thinkers' dogs with a more deliberate, considered approach to tasks. That thoughtful temperament has real value in certain roles, particularly in detection work, where careful, methodical searching matters, but in the demanding world of special operations, where missions can involve rapid building clearances, prolonged patrols in harsh environments, and repeated exposure to intense combat stress, raw determination and relentless drive often prove more valuable than cautious deliberation. This distinction reflects something deeper about where these breeds come from. The Belgian Malinois and Dutch Shepherd both descend from working line populations that, for most of their breeding history, were selected almost exclusively for performance in herding, protection, and competitive working trials, environments that reward relentless drive, fast recovery, and physical endurance above almost everything else. The German Shepherd, while it has its own celebrated working lines, has spent more of its overall breeding history split between working purposes and conformation showing, which inevitably dilutes the consistency of high-drive working temperament across the broader population. When a special operations unit is selecting a dog for a mission where hesitation or fatigue could cost lives, a breed population with a more consistent track record of sustained, high-intensity drive becomes the safer bet, not because every individual German Shepherd lacks that drive, but because the odds of finding it reliably are simply better within Dutch Shepherd and Malinois working lines. Reason 4: size, speed, and the parachute problem. There is also a straightforward physical consideration that has pushed special operations units toward lighter breeds, the realities of modern airborne and amphibious insertion methods. A German Shepherd typically weighs more than a Belgian Malinois or Dutch Shepherd, and that weight difference matters enormously when a dog needs to be strapped to a special operator for a parachute jump or fast roped from a helicopter. The lighter build of the Malinois and Dutch Shepherd makes jumps and rapid insertions significantly more practical, while still delivering the same bite force, speed, and detection capability that the mission requires. A Belgian Malinois, for instance, can run at speeds up to 30 miles an hour while weighing in the range of 55 to 65 pounds, which is light enough for tandem skydiving with a handler, yet powerful enough to stop a fully grown adult on contact. The Dutch Shepherd carries a comparable athletic profile, and its growing presence in special operations selection reflects that same calculation. None of this means the German Shepherd has disappeared from American military service. It remains one of the most widely used breeds across general-purpose military police and patrol roles throughout the broader Department of Defense, and it is still prized for its intelligence, versatility, and proven track record across nearly a century of service. What has changed is specifically the allocation within the highest-tier special operations units, where the combination of lighter body weight, demonstrated structural soundness, and a working line drive profile has made the Dutch Shepherd and the Belgian Malinois the increasingly preferred choice for the most demanding missions in the American military inventory. So what does this shift actually look like in practice today? And why, despite everything working in the Dutch Shepherd's favor, has it remained one of the most under-the-radar breeds in the entire military working dog conversation, even as it quietly takes on some of the most important roles in the program? The quiet rise. Why nobody talks about the Dutch Shepherd. Despite everything working in its favor, the Dutch Shepherd remains genuinely rare compared to the German Shepherd and Belgian Malinois, and that rarity is itself part of the story. The worldwide population of Dutch Shepherds remains relatively small today, largely because the breed nearly vanished during the Second World War. Its survival depended on decades of careful breeding and restoration efforts, the effects of which can still be seen in its limited numbers. Fewer breeders, fewer litters, and a smaller overall gene pool to draw from means the United States military and other working dog programs cannot scale Dutch Shepherd procurement the way they can with the much larger Malinois and German Shepherd populations available from Eastern European working line breeders. The breed's performance is, by every account from handlers who have worked with them, on par with the best dogs in the program, but its sheer scarcity has kept it out of the spotlight, even as it has earned a quiet, growing reputation among the people who actually decide which dog gets assigned to which mission. Handlers who have worked with Dutch Shepherds consistently describe them with a specific kind of respect that goes beyond simple performance metrics. They are praised for their drive to please, their ability to work independently when a mission calls for it, and a combination of obedience and physical endurance that holds up across extended patrols, detection work, and the kind of unpredictable multi-hour operations that define modern special operations missions. According to the U.S. War Dogs Association, the Belgian Malinois, Dutch Shepherd, and German Shepherd have become the dominant breeds within the American military working dog program. Their popularity stems from a rare combination of intelligence, loyalty, athleticism, and the ability to display controlled aggression when the mission demands it. The Dutch Shepherd's inclusion in that short list, despite its much smaller numbers, says everything about how seriously the people running these programs take its capability. Closing. So the next time someone pictures a military working dog and automatically imagines a German Shepherd, you'll know the more complete version of the story. The German Shepherd helped build the foundation of American military K-9 programs and served with distinction for decades. But over time, the effects of breeding priorities that increasingly favored success in the show ring rather than working performance began to reshape the breed. As a result, in some of the military's most demanding special operations roles, it gradually ceded ground to a smaller, lighter, and more structurally sound competitor, the Belgian Malinois, a breed that until recently was virtually unknown outside the working dog world. The Dutch Shepherd did not win this competition through marketing or popularity. It won through decades of quiet working line breeding that prioritized soundness and drive over appearance, and the United States military, which cares about exactly those two things more than almost any other institution on Earth. Noticed, there is a broader lesson buried in this story that extends well beyond dog breeds. The United States military's approach to selecting its working dogs is fundamentally a performance-driven process, stripped of sentimentality and brand loyalty. It does not matter how iconic the German Shepherd's silhouette has become in American popular culture, how many decades of service the breed has behind it, or how strongly people associate that image with the idea of a military dog. What matters is whether a given dog, from a given breed, with a given health and temperament profile, can reliably do the job in front of it without breaking down physically or hesitating mentally. That is precisely the kind of clear-eyed, evidence-based decision-making that has made the American military working dog program the most capable in the world, and the rise of the Dutch Shepherd within it is simply the latest example of that philosophy in action. Hit the like button if this gave you something to think about. It genuinely helps this channel reach more people who care about the real story behind American military capability. Subscribe and ring the bell because there is a lot more of this coming. And drop a comment below. Had you ever heard of the Dutch Shepherd before today? And does this change how you think about which breed actually deserves the title of America's most elite military dog? Tell me. See you in the next one.